Hello, everyone. Welcome. I'm just going to give it a minute for folks to trickle in and then we'll get started. Okay, welcome everybody to the Homelessness Reduction Innovation Fund information session, or HRIF information session. Today is July 9th. My name is Lisa Bell. I am the strategy lead with the Canadian Alliance to End Homelessness. I also have some of my teammates from CAEH on the call with me, including Amanda DeFalco, who is the Senior Director of Strategy and People. We also have Kat Riley, who's the Director of Built for Zero Reduce, Anna McGregor, who is the Senior Director of Community Impact, and I'm sure you're joined by several improvement advisors from the Canadian Alliance as well. And also our friends from the National Indigenous Homelessness Council, who are also involved in the Homelessness Reduction Innovation Fund. If you have yet to hear about the Canadian Alliance to End Homelessness, or CAEH, you can always check out our website at caeh.ca for all information on all of the initiatives that we lead for communities across the country. We are dedicated to ending homelessness and supporting communities to end homelessness in their communities, and lead several initiatives, including a national annual conference in the fall, different advocacy and campaigns. We have a community impact team to provide direct support to communities, and also lead different strategies and initiatives where we use data to move the needle on ending homelessness. So the Canadian Alliance to End Homelessness is committed to equity, dignity, justice, and belonging. We are dedicated to serving equity-seeking communities as anti-racist and oppressive and inclusive allies. I myself am situated on the traditional territories of the Erie, Neutral, Huron-Wendat, Haudenosaunee, and Mississaugas, which is colonially known as Hamilton, Ontario. And the land in which I reside is covered by the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Belt Covenant, which was an agreement to care for resources around the Great Lakes between the Anishinaabeg and Haudenosaunee peoples. If you are so inclined, you're welcome to put your own land acknowledgement in the chat so we know where you're joining from today. For today's agenda, we will cover an overview of the Homelessness Reduction Innovation Fund. We will answer some questions that we often receive about HRIF, and then we will have time for questions from participants. So I think you should be able to use the Q&A or question function of your Zoom panel at the bottom there, but feel free to also put questions in the chat if you're having difficulty navigating those. We will have my teammates answer questions as we go along if they're able to, and whatever we don't answer, we will try to get to those towards the end of the information session. This session will be recorded and made available on the Homelessness Reduction Innovation Fund website. Everyone is currently muted, and again, please use that Q&A or chat function for questions. So we have 3 information sessions in total. One is in English, that's the one today. Welcome, everyone. We have one in French tomorrow, which will provide the same information, except in French. And next week, the National Indigenous Homelessness Council is hosting an information session for Indigenous homelessness community entities to provide opportunities to learn about both the opportunities and implications of being funded through HRIF, including topics related to quality by name data, data governance, project design, as well as knowledge sharing and narrative sovereignty. And the information session is geared towards all Indigenous-led organizations and community entities funded through Reaching Home, including those organizations that receive both IH and designated community funding. You can use the QR code using your phone or go to the website link that I'm sure my teammate will put in the chat for all information on HRIF. So this will take you to the HRIF website that will include this webinar recording. It includes frequently asked questions, key dates and deadlines, and this is also where you'll find the expression of interest, which opens next week. The Homelessness Reduction Innovation Fund, or HRIF, is administered by the Canadian Alliance to End Homelessness, and it provides one-time grants for innovative, data-driven projects aimed at achieving measurable reductions in homelessness. CAH offers one-on-one guidance and coaching to communities on their projects and is dedicated to sharing successful approaches and learnings with other communities across the country so that we can spread measurable reductions in communities across Canada. The Homelessness Reduction Innovation Fund is funded in part by the federal government and is part of the federal government's commitment to Reaching Home, Canada's homelessness strategy as announced in Budget 2024. So let's dig into eligibility a little bit. So eligibility for the Homelessness Reduction Innovation Fund will be assessed through the expression of interest, which again will launch next week on July 14th, and I'll get into some key dates in just a moment. So to be eligible for the Homelessness Reduction Innovation Fund, communities outside of Quebec must be one of the organizations listed in those 4 bullet points. So you must be the Reaching Home community entity for either the designated community stream, the Indigenous homelessness stream, the territorial stream, or the community lead organization participating in Built for Zero Canada if you are not one of the community entities listed in the 3 bullet points above. If your organization is not a community entity or the lead organization for Built for Zero, please connect with one of those organizations to collaborate on a project. If your community has both a community entity for the designated community stream and a community lead with Built for Zero who are not the same organization, please collaborate on one project with one organization taking the lead. If you are an Indigenous-led organization that is not the Indigenous Homelessness Community Entity, or IHCE, please reach out to them or the designated community if no Indigenous Homelessness CE exists. Communities must also be able to demonstrate an improvement project aimed at reducing homelessness by either increasing move-ins or outflow, or decreasing inflow to homelessness for the chosen target population, and must also be able to demonstrate quality by name data, or QB&D, for their project's target population as confirmed through the Canadian Alliance to End Homelessness. CAEH will share learnings and successes from funded projects with other communities across the country, and funded projects commit to sharing their learnings, outcomes, and project data with the Canadian Alliance to End Homelessness. Communities must be willing and able to share their aggregate QB&D with the Canadian Alliance to End Homelessness on at least a monthly basis in order to support the tracking of progress towards the project aim or the project goal to achieve measurable reductions. Eligible target populations for the purposes of HRIF projects include chronic homelessness, veteran homelessness, unsheltered homelessness, and all homelessness, including the subpopulations listed on the slide and any other populations where we can show that you are able to measure reductions. All right, in terms of some key dates coming up, the expression of interest submission period opens on July 14th, which is early next week. And the expression of interest form that you can populate or fill out will be available on the HRIF website starting on the 14th and will remain open until August 15th. It's a very short questionnaire used to determine if a project is eligible and meets those eligibility criteria and is suitable, aligned with the intention of HRIF. And invitations to then complete a full application will be extended by the 2nd of September. Communities will also be informed if they were not selected to receive an application based on their expression of interest. Communities that were provided with an application or invited to apply will have to complete their applications by the end of September, specifically on September 26th. Applicants will be informed of their decision on October 24th, and we have a target of early 2026 for opening the next expression of interest for what will be the third round of the Homelessness Reduction Innovation Fund. Okay, let's dig into a couple frequently asked questions. Once again, if you have a question that is not answered throughout this process, please feel free to pop them into that question function in Zoom because we will allow some time to answer questions towards the end. So a common question that we have is how much funding is available to communities through the Homelessness Reduction Innovation Fund? And that is decided on a case-by-case basis and depends on factors such as what resources each community requires to achieve their aim. HRIF is intended to provide one-time grants to obtain a proof of concept for chosen projects, so applicants should consider the sustainability of projects beyond the project end date. Projects will be selected for funding through 4 overall steps. The first step is that expression of interest will be completed in order to assess eligibility and project suitability. And projects that meet that criteria may be sent an application and invited to apply. Improvement advisors with the Canadian Alliance to End Homelessness will work with those who were sent an application or invited to complete an application, as well as the National Indigenous Homelessness Council, or NIHC, may also provide support. Applications will be reviewed by a committee of representatives from CAEH with support from NIHC and outside experts. And final approval will be made by the Canadian Alliance to End Homelessness. In terms of eligible expenses, projects are expected to last up to 12 months. Projects may target any activity eligible under Reaching Home, but must focus on system-level interventions that are sustainable beyond HRIF's funding. And this initiative will not support capital expenses such as property acquisitions or new builds. However, smaller capital expenses such as renovations may be considered on a case-by-case basis. So if you aren't sure if what your project intends to do is eligible in terms of expenses, please connect with your contacts at the Canadian Alliance to End Homelessness for more information. Projects may target more than one population, and you'll be asked to specify target populations as part of the expression of interest. And projects may also target more than one inflow or outflow data point. However, you will be asked to select the primary data point that your project aims to improve. If your community receives the Homelessness Reduction Innovation Fund in a previous round, are you eligible to apply again? Short answer is yes. Communities may apply for a different project or the same project by building on learnings. However, communities cannot apply for additional funding to sustain an existing project. So communities can apply for a project aimed at reducing homelessness for a different target population through focusing on a different inflow or outflow data point, or by scaling an existing project, but in a way that tests a new approach or change. What is an improvement project aimed at reducing homelessness? So HRIF is for projects that aim to reduce homelessness by either increasing outflow or decreasing inflow for the target population. So communities are encouraged to lead projects that set smart aims, or specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound aims specifically related to reductions. Communities are encouraged to lead projects that use data to drive their project design and measure outcomes, that follow short, iterative plan, do, study, act cycles, that are innovative in their community or across approaches to reduce homelessness, and that present opportunities to share findings to spread reductions across the country. And I'll talk in a minute what we mean by outflow and inflow into homelessness. What is by name data for the purposes of HRIF? So by name data is real-time data of all known people experiencing homelessness in a community. It includes a robust set of data points that support coordinated access, prioritization, and an understanding of homelessness inflow and outflow at a systems level. This real-time actionable data supports triage to services, system performance, and advocacy. Further information on by name data can be found on the by name data page under resources on the Built for Zero Canada website. And I'm sure one of my teammates will pop that link into the chat. How are communities confirmed for having quality by name data? That is through the CAEH. So the Canadian Alliance to End Homelessness reviews a community's by name data scorecard and monthly aggregate inflow and outflow data to confirm QB&D, or quality by name data. And the scorecard is a framework with 13 key elements for building the necessary data management and systems coordination practices to understand the movement of everyone experiencing homelessness in a community. The by name data scorecard is part of a larger scorecard and tools workbook, and version 4.0, or the latest version of it, was released in November of last year. For an overview of the scorecard, see the workbook on the website, and there's also a recorded webinar and slides that go through what is included in the by name data scorecard. The scorecard addresses the components of quality data for all homelessness generally, with additional elements related to certain populations, including veterans and those experiencing chronic and unsheltered homelessness. In addition to the items noted under how are communities confirmed for having quality by name data, a community must complete the scorecard elements relevant to each population to be confirmed as having quality data for that target population. So this chart is available on the frequently asked questions as well on the HRIF website. But essentially, chronic homelessness, for this round of HRIF, you would need to have QB&D, or quality by name data, confirmed under the previous version of the scorecard. Communities that were confirmed previously for having quality data under scorecard version 3 will continue to have their milestone recognized by CAEH until October 31st. Beyond that date, communities will need to reconfirm under version 4. But for this specific round of the Homelessness Reduction Innovation Fund, communities may choose to focus their project on reducing chronic homelessness, even if they don't have version 4 confirmed, but just have version 3 confirmed in terms of the scorecard that helps confirm quality data. In terms of unsheltered homelessness and all homelessness, communities would need to have scorecard version 4.0, or the latest version, confirmed through the Canadian Alliance to End Homelessness. If your community does not yet have QB&D or quality by name data, you're still invited to complete the expression of interest. The intention of HRIF is to support communities' efforts to make measurable reductions in homelessness so that we have quality data to set that baseline point to measure reductions. But where eligibility criteria are not yet met, applicants are still encouraged to provide context in the expression of interest. And while applicants must meet eligibility in order to receive funding, projects that don't yet qualify may receive support to strengthen for future applications. If your organization acts as the Indigenous Homelessness Community entity, does not have QB&D confirmed, but are interested in applying, please indicate that in the expression of interest when prompted to share more or specify. And you'll also hear more about this during the information session next week on the 16th, led by the National Indigenous Homelessness Council. And I promised earlier to talk a little bit more about what we meant by inflow and outflow. So the Canadian Alliance to End Homelessness uses data points to measure inflow into homelessness and outflow out of homelessness into permanent housing. And so your projects will have to choose either to focus on increasing move-ins, increasing outflow in terms of folks who are moving into housing, or decreasing the folks who return from housing or who enter into homelessness who are newly identified to your system of care. And for projects that are focused on chronic homelessness, you may also choose to reduce the amount of folks who age into chronicity or those who experience homelessness for so long that they unfortunately become chronic or fit that chronicity definition. You will know if you've been invited to apply. If you've submitted an expression of interest, you will be notified if you've been invited to apply or not by September 2nd. You'll be able to express interest in future rounds of HRIF in early 2026, but the expression of interest for this current round of HRIF will open next week on July 14th. If you're unsuccessful in a previous round, that does not mean that you can't apply for future rounds. Folks who are unsuccessful in previous rounds are still invited to reapply and can receive support from CAEH or the National Indigenous Homelessness Council to improve their project proposal. Okay, I'm going to lean on my teammates here to let me know if there's any questions in the Q&A.
Hi, Lisa. Not necessarily questions, but I just want to acknowledge and raise some of the frustration that has come to light regarding the BC community context. And I just want to name that and also say that we see that as an issue. We understand it to be an issue. And CAH and the National Indigenous Homelessness Council are working behind the scenes to find alternatives or pathways forward. The challenge, of course, is that this is a federal government funded program with eligibility requirements, and one of them is data, quality by name data, in order for us to measurably determine whether or not an improvement has been made. And so that's part of the challenge that we're working through is that essentially is the methodology of the funding. That being said, we are open to exploring ways to unpack some of the challenges that has caused for communities, but BC communities in particular, as that is a very specific context. So I invite you, Mike or others on the call who may be experiencing this, which is a real frustration, and I just want to acknowledge that. But we are certainly open to listening and learning and trying to find a pathway forward together. So I invite you to attend the Indigenous information session, and or speak to any of us at CAH and or Myanna, and the contact information has been provided in the comments. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Amanda. Is there any other questions that we see in our question section or in the chat that have not been answered?
There are a few. I'm just going to name them as Kat is responding to some of them now, I can see, but maybe I'll just name some of them and then invite my colleagues here to jump in as needed. So I see here one of them is if your organization isn't the community entity, what extent of collaboration with them is expected? Oh, and I see Kat just actually answered that question in the Q&A. So maybe I'll just invite people to read the answer for that, or if anyone wants to take themselves off mute and just give a quick response since it's been named verbally, the question.
Yeah, I can just provide a little bit more context there. And sorry, I think I hit send just as you were reading the question. With regards to the level of collaboration required with the CE, if the organization looking to apply is not the CE, generally speaking, we just need to make sure that everyone understands what level of support is required. So generally, this might not apply to everyone, but generally the CE holds the data and they are the ones that are required to submit the application for HRIF. So they might play just more of an administrative role in supporting the project more in the background and have a partner organization doing more of the project execution on the ground. That's totally fine. We would ask for a letter of support in that case with the CE, just indicating we understand that although we're not leading the project, we are ultimately accountable to its outcomes, and we're committed to sharing the data and supporting the project however possible.
Thanks, Kat. The other question is from Amanda, not me, another Amanda. And the question is, what's the maximum amount of time or duration for the project?
The maximum is 12 months. These are intended to be shorter term, one-time projects to explore a proof of concept to then build on learnings and sustain any changes that have led to reductions or improvement beyond the project. So the projects are meant to be short term with a maximum of 12 months.
Thanks, Lisa. Yeah, the proof of concept is the key here. This isn't sustainable program funding. It's really to test a change idea that will lead to an improvement in your inflow or outflow data. So please keep that in mind. All right, another question is, could you give some examples of previously funded projects? Maybe we could talk a little about what types of projects were approved in round one. So maybe we could give some examples of that. Over to you, Lisa and Kat, and or Anna.
Yeah, would you like me to take this one, Kat?
Sure,
Yeah,
if
awesome.
that'd be great.
Yeah, so we currently are still working with projects to fully get some projects off the ground. But currently we have communities that will lead projects dedicated to either reducing inflow by way of targeting case management supports, for example, or by testing flexible funding to see if that could rapidly rehouse somebody in the community. We also have some projects that are, dedicated to increasing outflow or increasing move-ins or accelerating move-ins by a variety of initiatives. And I think I'll miss a lot of the details. So please jump in, Kat, if any other examples come to mind.
I think you covered it for now. Yeah, we'll definitely be sharing more information as soon as we're available about what projects are in the works.
Just to add, other themes that we noticed last time was leaning into some of the housing first best practices. So thinking about landlord liaison workers, matching and prioritization process improvements. So it doesn't always just have to be adding a staff person. It could be how to test a different process in your system, how to run a different way of doing business as well. So encourage you to think through that. And if you have any questions or ideas, please do consult with a staff person at the Canadian Alliance. We're always happy to try to get you to yes, instead of this being sort of like, what can't you do? We want to explore what is possible with you. So encourage you to do that. If we have a program that's being funded federally, can we still apply for more funding with the same program or a new idea within the program? Great question, Sean. Maybe I'll take this one. The answer is yes, if it is a new idea within an existing program. So again, just to reiterate that the funding is not to enhance something that's already happening or to sustain something that's already happening. It's to test something that is new. And I see here that Sean, who's asked this question, has raised his hand. Are we able to have Sean come off mute? If we can't, we can ask Sean, invite you to, in the comments, maybe just ask your follow-up question.
Hi.
Hi, Sean.
I'm not sure why you guys can't see my face. Not sure what's going on with my video.
It's the way our Zoom is set up.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, no worries.
I just
We can hear
tried to
you.
fix it. My apologies.
That's
So
okay.
I'm part of a new program, and with risking not saying too much, we do have some funding coming in federally and from another source as well. So I work for an agency that's actually a homeless shelter, and we were chosen because of our density. I'm involved in a new housing program that's helping veterans. So we are part of a program that houses homeless veterans. We do have quite a bit of funding available for our program. But as the years roll on, I'm just wondering if there's anything that we could do if we can, show that we're seeing a statistical difference in a positive direction and that we're meeting other criteria and directives. If we could, yes, absolutely get more funding available. And I believe you sort of answered my question when, like, if we were going to do an add-on to have outreach van, let's say, and I would apply for funding to get an outreach van so we could do outreach and reach a veteran population. And that is possible, you said.
Yes, is adding to an existing, like improving an existing service with something that doesn't currently exist. Yes, I would just also caution that anything that's capital in expenses is not eligible through this particular program. But if you're looking to have, outreach workers specifically dedicated to veterans to match to housing quicker, for example, that could be something that would be considered. Yeah.
Certainly. Thank you.
No problem. Next question, how much funding is available?
So funding is determined on a case-by-case basis. So I'd encourage you to work with your improvement advisor or your contact with the National Indigenous Homelessness Council to figure out exactly what it is you would need to fund as part of the project, and they'd be happy to support to figure out a realistic budget for that. But again, funding is determined on a case-by-case basis for projects.
And in case the question is also how much funding is available overall, which I know people are also curious about, I wonder if we could also share, generally speaking, what the amount looks like for round 2.
I'm not quite sure, but we can put that in our FAQs on the website.
I believe it's somewhere around the $5.5 million mark, but we can definitely follow up with that. But overall, yeah. I'm seeing a lot of curiosity as well about, what has been successful in round 1. And so perhaps in our on our website, we could put a little bit of a list together about different ideas that we've seen emerge that have been successful, so folks have a better sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm really looking forward to the time, which will be sooner rather than later, where we can start to share some of the projects that were funded throughout the first round of HRIF, because one of the biggest reasons why we're supporting HRIF projects is to be able to share learnings across the country and to build reductions in communities across the country and learn from one another. So you can definitely bookmark or favorite the HRIF webpage so you can get all of the updates and see what types of projects are out there and learnings that you can take into your own community. I think too, the projects that we're seeing in the first round really relied on their by name data to be able to identify their project. So beyond their inflow, outflow, high level aggregate data, getting really curious about why, for example, they had higher newly identified in the last 6 months, or why, potentially they're not seeing as many move-ins as they have in the past. So getting really curious about your inflow and outflow data and designing a project to address what it is that you're seeing in your by name data, if that makes sense. So even though some projects are testing similar interventions in their community, they really had to rely on their own community's data to understand what type of project they would propose and lead in order to reach reductions.
Great, thank you. And just to clarify, in terms of the successful projects through round 1, we are still working out some contractual details with those projects, which is why we haven't been able to share yet. But we are very anxious and excited to get that information out to all of you as soon as we are able. And so please do check back on the website, and we will be able to share that once those contracts are finalized. This is a question perhaps for Mayanna. I'm wondering if we might be able to take Mayanna off mute for this one. Mayanna, the question is whether or not folks can attend the Indigenous information session if you are an IH Stream community. So basically, can you attend if you are not an IH Stream community, so a non-Indigenous community or participant? Are they able to register and attend?
I don't think it would be a useful event. Hi, folks. This is Mariana calling in. I appreciate the interest in it, and maybe what we need to do is arrange an additional time to get together with those non-IH stream organizations. But really what this learning session is about next week is specifically identifying and finding pathways to eligibility for IH stream applicants. So it's not necessarily about proposal or program design, but it's more about eligibility. But if there is interest in just having a get together and talking about your programs, I think putting our heads together is sometimes better than meeting one-on-one. So I'd be happy to do that.
Thanks, Mayanna. Is the CE required to submit an expression of interest or just the application? You are required to submit an expression of interest. It's the way in which you'll get the application form to you, because we will invite you to apply based on the expression of interest. All right. If funding for a specialized position has recently ended and is now being funded by donations, are we able to apply for the continuation of the position as it's essentially unfunded? It's a case manager position. Unfortunately, the answer is no to that, because it's an existing thing that's already happening in your community, and this particular funding is not meant for sustainable funding. It's meant to provide you and arm you with information around what actually works to prevent and reduce homelessness in your community, so that then you can scale up over time and seek sustainable funding long term. Would rent subsidies or rent lump sums, first and last, be considered to get and keep folks housed? Wonder if, Kat, if you just want to answer this one verbally.
Sure. Yes. So in short, yes, they may be considered. It would be similar to the previous question Amanda just answered, in that it would need to be testing proof of concept for a new program or new population, not just a continuation of an existing program.
All right, I think I got all of the questions in. If I missed any, I invite you to just very quickly maybe use the chat or the Q&A to type it in before I end the facilitation of the Q&A and pass it back over to Lisa. Okay, one more. Would a new pilot portfolio project to create supportive housing at scale using innovative building practices with the goal of significantly reducing municipal homelessness be eligible? So that feels like a very technical question, and I would invite you to contact us to unpack that a little bit more. Just as a reminder, capital is not funded, but if there is specific program things that you want to test relative to the supportive housing model you're looking to implement, we could certainly explore what that might look like. Would an access point or drop-in center be eligible? Lisa or Kat, do you want to take that one?
I'm just responding to one in the Q&A, Lisa. So if you can take that one, that would be great.
Sure. Sorry, I missed that question.
That's okay. Would an access point or drop-in center be eligible?
I think they would if you partnered with the community entity for any one of the streams in the community on a project, then your project might be eligible. If you also meet the other eligibility criteria and are testing, again, a one-time improvement project geared at achieving reductions. So the community entity or the lead organization participating in Built for Zero could partner with access points in the community on a project, for example.
Wonderful. Back over to you, Lisa.
Sounds good. Thank you so much. That is everything from our end. I look forward to, or we look forward to seeing expressions of interest start coming in next week. So visit the Homelessness Reduction Innovation Fund webpage, and a teammate of mine will put that link in the chat next week to be able to access the expression of interest form. And you will have until the 15th of August to complete that short expression of interest. And we look forward to sharing project progress on the HRIF webpage as well, and working with you to reduce and end homelessness in your communities. All right, I think I'm still seeing my teammates answer questions, so I don't want to necessarily end it there if we're in the middle of answering. I don't want to cut anybody off, but
Lisa, I'm wondering if I could just also share one quick point is we totally get that you have a lot of questions about what could be considered or not considered. And the best approach, the best advice I think we could provide all of you right now is please do reach out. If you have an improvement advisor connected to your community, please do reach out to your improvement advisor. If you don't, please do contact us at CAH directly. We would love to talk to you about your ideas. We want you to succeed. And we are here to support the development of your community idea. Even if you're not sure yet what that might shape out to be, we do have a process and a way to explore through your data with you. So please do not hesitate. I see also Mayanna has reached out, raised their hand, and so I will pause and pass it back over to Lisa to take Mayanna off mute.
Thanks so much. I just wanted to follow up what you're saying, Amanda, as well, with a similar offer. You know, while the information session I'm hosting next week is for those Indigenous applicants, I do know from having been through this process with CAH in the first round that there was assessment as part of the selection for the successful applicants. There was an assessment of Indigenous partnerships, a consideration of our Indigenous homeless relatives. We all in this meeting, I'm sure, are intimately familiar with the systemic realities of homelessness in our communities and amongst our Indigenous peoples. And CAH has, as they've said, they've stated their commitment to addressing that through this program, but they're also really operationalizing that in their assessment of your applications. So if you would like to talk about how to better consider Indigenous ways of being and knowing, and how to engage Indigenous leadership in your community, if that's a challenge for your community, or if it's just something you'd like to work on, I would be more than happy to talk to anyone about that. My email is in there. And, I love getting a Teams meeting in the calendar. So please don't hesitate to reach out and to talk about that.
thank you very much, Mayanna.
Thanks.
Okay, I'm not
Sorry,
seeing Gary's typing anymore.
Oh, sorry, I was just going to say one more thing. I was just going to to Mayanna's point, I was just reflecting on, what a gift it is to have somebody that is deeply and intimately working within Indigenous community that brings Indigenous perspective to serve as a support for communities working really hard to end homelessness and knowing that overrepresentation of Indigenous homelessness in likely every community from coast to coast to coast. And so what a unique opportunity to be able to sit and just learn and find a pathway forward with that expertise, that wisdom, and that insight. And so thank you so much. And I really do hope that many communities do reach out and take up that opportunity.
Right. Thank you very much to everyone on the call. Thank you for joining. If you missed anything, everything will be available on the HRIF website, and we will send out the slides and this recording as well afterwards. So yeah, thank you so much for joining. Happy Wednesday, everyone.